Desire does not begin with closeness. It begins with distance. A woman may enjoy a man's presence, appreciate his consistency, even admire his devotion. But her deeper desire awakens only when something interrupts that flow, when the predictable becomes uncertain, when the man she thought she understood suddenly pulls away. This shift, this emotional eclipse, creates a psychological vacuum inside her. That vacuum is where longing is born. Nietzsche believed that desire thrives in the space between possession and loss. The moment you fully own something, you stop longing for it. The moment you risk losing it, the heart begins to burn. Female psychology responds to this law with remarkable sensitivity. When a man withdraws, deliberately or naturally, she is forced into a kind of inner confrontation. Her mind begins replaying moments that once felt ordinary but now feel symbolic. His silence grows heavier than his words ever were. His absence becomes louder than his presence. She begins imagining scenarios, interpreting possibilities, and stitching emotional meaning into his every shift. This is the imagination mechanism that drives female attraction. Women feel through stories, inner narratives. Emotional symbolism shifts in tone and energy. When he pulls away, she doesn't just see a man taking space. She sees a story unfolding, a mystery forming, a question rising. And questions are powerful because the mind cannot rest until they are answered. Jung wrote that the feminine psyche contains a shadow, filled with fears of abandonment and desires for significance. When a man's attention becomes uncertain, that shadow awakens. The fear pushes her toward him. The desire pulls her deeper into her imagination. The tension binds her emotions to him more strongly than consistency ever could. This is why the man who pulls away becomes unforgettable. Not because he is superior, but because he becomes psychologically unresolved. The unresolved always holds the mind captive. Part of this dynamic lies in scarcity. Anything that seems limited feels more valuable. A man whose presence is irregular is subconsciously seen as a man with a full life, higher priorities and deeper purpose. His energy feels rarer and therefore more precious. A woman does not consciously think this. Her instincts simply register that she is not the center of his world. And strangely, that is exactly what draws her in. The dark feminine is not attracted to men who orbit her. She is attracted to men who move through the world with a sense of direction, independent of her. The man who pulls away signals that he belongs to his own path. She wants a place inside that path, and the uncertainty fuels the pursuit. This is where Nietzsche's law becomes fully visible. He argued that longing is intensified by distance, tension, and unfulfilled desire. A desire fulfilled too quickly collapses, but a desire that remains slightly out of reach grows sharper and more intoxicating. When a man pulls away, he turns himself into an ongoing desire rather than a completed one. She feels a gravitational pull toward what she cannot fully claim. Part 1 of this dynamic is psychological scarcity. When something becomes uncertain, the human mind assigns it more value. Women are especially sensitive to emotional scarcity. If his attention was once abundant and suddenly becomes scarce, her emotional system spikes. She begins wondering what changed, and in that wondering, she becomes attached. Her chase begins not out of ego, but out of emotional curiosity. She wants clarity, closure, or reconnection. But beneath all those desires lies a deeper one, the desire to restore the feelings she once had. Part 2 is the shadow of desire. Jungian psychology explains that a woman's attraction is deeply tied to emotional polarity, light and dark, comfort and tension, presence and absence. When he pulls away, the dark polarity emerges. She feels uncertainty but also a strange curiosity. She feels anxiety but also excitement. These emotional contrasts create intensity, and intensity is the essence of female desire. The shadow is not evil. It is the container of everything powerful that the conscious mind avoids. When he withdraws, her shadow awakens, and with it, the rawer layers of her desire. Part 3 is the reconstruction narrative. Once a man pulls away, she begins reconstructing the relationship in her mind. She reinterprets moments she took for granted, elevates his qualities, magnifies his presence, and sharpens her memory of him. His absence forces her to build an internal version of him, a version often more intense than the real man himself. This internal reconstruction binds her emotions to him even more powerfully. The more she imagines, the more she feels. The more she feels, the more she desires. And the more she desires, the more she chases the man who pulled away. This is the psychological and philosophical architecture behind why women love the man who withdraws. It is not the withdrawal itself, but what the withdrawal awakens inside her. Part 4 begins with the emotional paradox that sits at the heart of attraction. Women claim they want stability, certainty, and predictable affection. Yet throughout psychological research and timeless philosophy, we find that stability must be balanced with tension for desire to survive. When a man pulls away, he disrupts the emotional equilibrium she relied on. This disruption is not pleasant, but it is powerful. It evokes a mix of longing and confusion that pushes her deeper into the emotional field where attraction grows. She begins feeling his absence as an emotional pressure, a hollow space where comfort used to be. That empty space becomes the new environment in which her imagination blooms. Nietzsche often spoke of the human need for the stimulus of becoming, the idea that something must remain unfinished or uncertain in order to remain alive in one's consciousness. A relationship without tension becomes static, and static things cease to inspire. When a man withdraws intentionally or naturally, he restores the sense of becoming. He becomes once again a moving target, something emotionally alive, unpredictable, and therefore compelling. Women crave emotional aliveness far more than emotional convenience. This is why the predictable man often feels invisible, while the distant man feels unforgettable. Part 4 focuses on the feminine pursuit instinct. Although society frames men as the natural pursuers, the feminine psyche has its own parallel pursuit mechanism. This mechanism is rarely outwardly aggressive but inwardly intense. When she feels emotional distance, she becomes more attentive, more perceptive, more emotionally alert. She starts noticing tiny cues she ignored before: timing, tone, patterns, breaks in patterns. Her intuition heightens because her emotional investment has deepened. The exact moment he pulls away is the moment she unconsciously begins pursuing him. Not always through action, but through emotional focus. Her attention becomes tied to him. Attention is the currency of desire. She may not text him, call him, or chase him directly. Instead, she chases him internally. She checks his online presence. She replays conversations. She imagines scenarios. She wonders about other women. She compares herself with potential rivals. This internal pursuit is often stronger than any external gesture. It ties her psychological energy to him, creating a loop that grows stronger the longer he remains slightly out of reach. This is the stage where many women realize that their feelings are deeper than they previously admitted even to themselves. Part 5 dives into the ego wound and the elevation effect. When a man pulls away, a woman's ego experiences a microfracture, not a collapse, but a subtle crack that forces introspection. She wonders whether she misread his interest, whether she lost value in his eyes, whether something about her changed. This moment is painful, but it is also the heart of the attachment experience. The ego wound pushes her to elevate him. This elevation is psychological, not logical. She begins assigning him traits she may not have considered before. He becomes more desirable precisely because he becomes harder to reach. Scarcity transforms him from an option into a prize. Attraction psychology shows that people overvalue what feels selective. If he is pulling away, she assumes he is selective. Her mind instinctively fills the gap. If he doesn't give attention easily, then his attention must be meaningful. If he doesn't offer himself fully, then he must be a man with high standards. His distance becomes a symbol of his worth. The feminine psyche romanticizes men who maintain a sense of separation, because separation implies power. The man who pulls away subtly demonstrates that he cannot be emotionally controlled. This is why the woman begins to chase, not because she is needy, but because she senses strength in the emotional independence he shows. Nietzsche believed that human desire intensifies in the presence of resistance. Resistance does not repel, it sharpens longing. Women respond to resistance emotionally, not just intellectually. When he is less reachable, she becomes more imaginative. When he is less predictable, she becomes more emotionally engaged. The resistance he creates is not a barrier. It is an invitation into a deeper psychological dimension. This is why women often fall hardest for the man who creates a tension between closeness and distance. The tension keeps the emotional narrative alive. Part 6 explores the fear of emotional replacement. When a man pulls away, a woman's mind begins generating possibilities. And one of the strongest possibilities is the fear that she is being replaced. This fear is not a sign of insecurity. It is a natural emotional response tied to evolutionary psychology. The feminine instinct evolved to detect shifts in a partner's investment because such shifts once had survival consequences. When she senses withdrawal, her system interprets it as a potential loss of connection, protection, or emotional partnership. Even in the modern world, her mind reacts with the same ancient pattern. This fear of replacement intensifies attraction because it pushes her into emotional urgency. She begins thinking about him more frequently, comparing herself to imagined rivals, and assessing her own value in his eyes. Ironically, she may not have desired him deeply before, but the threat of losing him awakens a desire she did not expect. Loss activates longing. Potential loss activates longing even more. Nietzsche argued that humans do not desire the object itself. They desire the preservation of the feeling the object gives them. A woman's fear of losing the man who pulls away is often the fear of losing the feeling she experienced with him: significance, attention, validation, connection, or romantic excitement. The man becomes a symbol of her emotional need. The fear of replacement also activates the competitive instinct within the dark feminine. She grows more determined to reclaim his attention, not just for emotional satisfaction, but for the restoration of her psychological position. This is why she becomes hyper-aware of other women, hyper-aware of his movements, hyper-aware of any sign that suggests she is no longer central in his emotional orbit. The man who pulls away unintentionally awakens a primal, ancient layer of feminine energy that is both tender and fierce. This energy binds her desire to him with greater intensity. These three parts, pursuit instinct, ego wound, and fear of replacement, complete the central phase of female desire activation. What began as mild interest evolves into emotional fixation, and the man who pulls away becomes the gravitational center of her internal world. Part 7 examines the deepest psychological layer of this dynamic: the return of idealization. Idealization is the mental process through which a woman elevates a man beyond his literal qualities and into symbolic significance. When a man is consistent, available, and predictable, her mind has no reason to idealize him. He becomes emotionally flat, familiar, and perhaps too easy to understand. But when he pulls away, the psyche reconstructs him not as he is, but as he is imagined. This reconstruction, this symbolic elevation, is one of the most powerful engines of attraction. Idealization returns when clarity disappears. The moment she feels uncertain about where she stands, she begins filling the emotional gap with symbolic meaning. He becomes the representation of something deeper: the excitement she once felt, the validation she craves, the emotional narrative she believes she deserves, or the sense of significance she wishes to reclaim. The man represents a chapter of her inner world she does not want to lose. That chapter becomes larger than the man himself. The mind does not desire the literal person. It desires the story it built around him. The man who pulls away becomes the guardian of that story. Nietzsche understood this phenomenon. He wrote that love is not a relationship between two people, but between a person and their own ideal. The beloved becomes a mirror of the lover's inner longing. When a man pulls away, he becomes less real and more symbolic. The less tangible he is, the more power he gains inside her imagination. This symbolic version of him casts a long shadow across her emotional landscape. She is not simply missing the man. She is missing the version of herself she felt in his presence. His absence forces her to chase not him, but the meaning she attached to him. Now we move into the ending, where the psychological mechanics culminate in a final truth. Women do not fall in love with the man who pulls away. They fall in love with the version of themselves his distance awakens. The man becomes a catalyst. The real transformation occurs inside her. His withdrawal makes her see her own desires more clearly. It forces her to confront her insecurities, her hopes, her romantic ideals, and her hidden fears. The man becomes the trigger that activates dormant emotional layers she didn't realize she possessed. Jung explained that relationships awaken parts of the psyche that cannot be accessed alone. The man who pulls away activates the shadow, the anima projection, the internal stories, the competitive instinct, and the hunger for emotional significance. All these elements converge into a single intense experience. This is why she may find herself obsessing over a man she barely knew, or feeling a stronger desire for the distant man than for men who were more present and more loyal. The emotional intensity is not logical, it is archetypal. And here lies the final paradox. Withdrawal generates desire, but only if the man carried value in the first place. Only a man with emotional depth, authenticity, or strong masculine presence can create that effect. A shallow man who withdraws is simply forgotten. A strong man who withdraws becomes unforgettable. His absence carries weight because his presence carried meaning. This is why his distance holds power. This is why her desire intensifies. This is why she falls deeper the moment he steps back. The emotional field expands, the psychological tension heightens, and the law of desire begins its silent work. Nietzsche would say she does not desire the man, she desires the fire inside her that he ignites. And that fire lives in the space between two hearts that are close enough to feel each other, but far enough to long for each other. If this exploration helped you understand the hidden layers of female desire and the psychology behind distance, watch our next video. We go even darker and deeper into the emotional shadows. Why women test men they care about, Jung's theory of the feminine shadow. That video uncovers how women unconsciously challenge the men they desire, why those tests matter, and how they reveal the truth behind the feminine psyche.